Yes, it's nice to be back with you all this week. I just spent the weekend in the desert. It's one of my places I like to to go and disappear in, and so it's really wonderful, just to take some time out away from life and just feel the silence of the desert. Feel the silence. So I thought I would just start off with a couple of announcements. Wanted to thank everyone for their generous support of this satsang. If you feel inclined and you'd like to offer a donation, you can visit craigholiday.com, and there's some PayPal links there, donate button, all that kind of stuff. Also, I'd like to let everyone know that one of the greatest enlightened beings on the planet, Amma, she's traveling right now in North America. So you might just go on to her website. It's amma.org and just see if she's coming to your town or somewhere close by. She goes to, I don't know how many stops in the U.S., but maybe 10 big stops throughout the U.S. and hits most of the major cities. And I've been seeing her for about 20-something years now. And it's always, such an incredible experience. She is a living saint, a living master. And, it's beautiful to visit with a master and to see what's possible for us as human beings. I can remember the first time I saw her. It's like seeing God in human form. She's so she's so non-human, but of course she has a human body, and she has done countless miracles, and I think she's hugged something like 30 million human beings here on planet Earth, and her love it's just endless. It's endless. And so if you do choose to go, let's keep in mind it is a little bit of a circus when you go and see her. There's singing and music and food, and they sell all kinds of things there that supports her charities. She's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, humanitarian on planet Earth. She's won the Gandhi Martin Luther King Award and has been named Woman of the Year in India, which is, there's a billion people in India, so that's pretty good. But I have the utmost respect for her. When I first took my mother to see Amma, and when I just opened the door, to the big conference hall where Amma was, my mom's heart just burst open. She burst into tears, and she about couldn't contain herself. She didn't know what had happened. And she couldn't even see Amma because Amma sits up in the front, but she's just surrounded by people, and so she's just hugging one after the next. And so anyways, if you get a chance, it's worth the drive. I normally drive, it's about 4 hours down across the desert down to Santa Fe and see her. And I normally take my kids, so sometimes I'll go alone, but I've gone every year for 20-something years now, and each time it's just, you just feel as if you're being bathed in unconditional love and bliss and joy, and all in a pretty crazy environment. And by that I mean, if you've practiced Zen or Buddhist meditation, you normally just sit in this supreme silence. But when you go to Amma, there's people, children running all over, and people coming and going, and loud music, and it'll go on till sometimes 4 or 5 a.m. You don't have to stay the whole time, but it is it is a little bit of a circus. So something like it's nothing like anything else on the planet. So anyways, that's a couple announcements, and one last announcement. If you're thinking about joining us for the retreat here in Durango, 7/18 through the 21st, please sign up. We're looking forward to having you there. Our retreats are very small and intimate, and there's plenty of time for individual attention, and be periods of meditation and a little bit of light, gentle yoga, walking meditation, 2 or 3 satsangs each day. And so we look forward to having you. Okay, so I think those are the big announcements. I don't know if I said the proper thank you to everyone who donated. So a thank you to Tatiana and Justina and Lisa, Terrence, Marianne, Butch, and many others. So thank you. Thank you. So I thought we might just take a moment, just to close our eyes. Just feel the quiet presence of silence, which is embracing us all in this moment. And just to feel this silence, experience the silence. Say yes. Yes to the silence. Most of us, we say yes to our thinking minds all day long, and our emotional nature, which guides us one way or the other. But I invite you to allow your attention to fall on the silence, the silent space of awareness, the space out of which thought arises, the space out of which your personality arises. And so we're just noticing that there is something which is gentle and awake. This something is our presence. And so we're feeling this quiet aliveness, this gentle simplicity of being. And if you notice, awareness is spacious. So if you're having trouble noticing that, I'm going to invite you to allow awareness, just to witness a thought, like one little thought. And then I'm going to invite you to allow awareness to unhook from that thought and to step into the background. And don't just take one step into the background. I invite you to take 10 steps to feel, experience the hugeness of this moment. Experience the hugeness of it. And notice how awareness, it naturally allows for everything. It encompasses everything. And so again, you're giving yourself permission to unhook from any thought, any sound, any movement of mind or emotion. And just to take 10 steps backwards. I say 10 because I want you to deeply unhook from the mind. Sometimes it can be helpful to feel your energetic body and to pull awareness back towards the back of the skull. And just notice everything. Notice everything. And so we're breathing, feeling, and giving ourselves permission to experience the hugeness of what we are. And one of my colleagues, Locke Kelly, he likes to ask this question: what's here now when there is no problem to solve? What's here now when there's no problem to solve? What's here beyond name, beyond form, beyond gender? What's here? What is this presence that I am? How big is it? How vast? How empty? How free? And so we're giving ourselves permission just to let go into this and to open up into a receptive state where we are receiving our divinity we are receiving our divinity, and simultaneously we're receiving this transmission, this grace of God coming down into you. You're giving yourself full permission to allow your energetic body to be open, to be relaxed, to be receptive. You may even envision like a crown, a big bowl on top of your head, on your crown chakra. And we're gently receiving grace, receiving love, unconditional love. Many of us, we spend our days just receiving our own thoughts, chasing our thoughts here and there, and even making ourselves a little bit crazy. But I invite you to receive that which is greater than thought, that which is greater than mind, this absolute divinity, this healing light, this healing presence. And so the first step is we're just stepping into this natural state of awareness, this natural state of presence. And then the second step is we are opening ourselves to God, saying, Divine Mother, will you come into me and flood me with light, with grace, with happiness and joy? Will you show me something? Show me something greater than my thinking mind. A deep, full belly breaths, just breathing in and breathing out. And giving yourself permission, just to gently open your eyes. And stay with your experience. But I thought I would just share this. This is Amma. One of my teachers. When she was quite young, her skin was extra dark when she was born. And the people in the village and her parents, they didn't know what to do with her. They, in a sense, they were prejudiced against their own child, their own family. They didn't treat her very good. They made her the servant of the house. Sometimes they would just beat her relentlessly. She grew up as a poor villager in Kerala, South India. With a family who, no one could read or write. It was dirt poor poverty. And she used to go out and sit on the beach and just call to God. She'd say, Ma, 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 just calling upon the Divine Mother to come into her, to take her. And even as a little kid, she would get into a little bit of trouble. She would steal things and give it to the poor. So a little bit of jewelry from the family, and she'd give it to the poor, and she was always out feeding the poor, and so she was always being beaten. And but she just had this incredible love for her parents, for her family, for those who abused her. There was even a time when she started to grow up and perform miracles, and one of her brother's friends thought she was the devil and tried to kill her. And she it was a really tragic story. After the guy tried to kill her, I think he tried to stab her with a knife or something. The fella got really sick, and then she sat by his bedside and just nursed him and took good care of him. I think eventually he did die, maybe of a heart attack or something. I'm not certain that part of the story is absolutely true, but I can remember the story of, that she took good care of this man who tried to kill her. Just overwhelming love that she had. And so she started teaching at a young age, and pretty soon an ashram was formed around her. And now, many decades later, she's, traveled the world and hugged 30 million people. And, people with leprosy would come to her, and she would lick their wounds, in order to heal them. She's Christ-like love. It's unbelievable when you look into her eyes. It's what she is. And I like Amma because, she's always chanting the name of God. Total humility, calling upon God to come into her in greater and greater ways, so that she may be a conduit of light, a conduit of grace, conduit of love. And see, all of us have the possibility, the potential to become something greater. So what we are in our absolute nature is pure, is divine. This is what the Buddha taught, that our original nature is divine. And so the Buddha's path was a path of waking up to that which is. That which is. That which is beyond mind, beyond emotion, beyond ego, beyond personality, beyond identification, beyond the small me. And realizing this infinite peace and light and love that you are. And that's what I call, again, step one. And then step two is when you realize your nature. You're inviting God to come into it more fully, to flood it, to flood you so that you may be a conduit of grace, of light, of love to your family, your friends, your community. And this doesn't have to be, like being a living saint. It can be just a willingness to smile to someone at work, or to listen more deeply and fully. A couple of hours ago, my mother called me, and since my father died, she doesn't, she struggles a little bit with taking care of things around the house, and her hot water heater went out, and I was trying to help her fix it over the phone. I live 1,000 miles away from her, and so I said, well, why don't you try FaceTime? And so she was, she's a little bit older, and so she wasn't holding the, her cell phone. She wasn't holding the camera exactly where I needed to hold it. She was, so I was trying to, look at the different parts of the hot water heater, and I'm pretty good with mechanical stuff. I can fix just about anything. And, but she just wasn't able to hold her phone so I could see what it was. And I kept, trying to patiently tell her to adjust the angle of the camera at what she was holding the phone. And, this went on and on for many minutes. And I know she was getting a little frustrated because this was something she wasn't so comfortable with. And, and sometimes this is what it means to be a conduit of grace, is just to listen, to hold someone's hand through, a technical support situation, or, to listen to someone when they ask you a question or tell you how their day is. And a willingness to be there fully, even if you don't solve their problem completely or at all. Just a willingness to listen. To listen. It's so helpful. Especially with this current, political climate coming up, with an election coming up next year. Can we listen to each other? Instead of just throwing stones and saying you're wrong or you're bad, can we listen? Oh, I heard this thing on the news yesterday about Democrats and Republicans trying to work together for climate change. It was almost comical because, for, I guess, the extent of history, most Republicans have denied climate change. It's even a thing. They're afraid to even bring it up. And then Democrats, have been, coined, bleeding heart liberals and unable to listen. But the truth, the Democrats just want to blame, and Republicans, they want to just focus on jobs and see if our world's going to change. If we're going to heal, we need to learn how to listen to each other. And they interviewed this, I can't remember what he was, a Congress or, senator from Florida. And he was a Republican, and he actually, he spoke about climate change, and he ran on it for his ticket and said, I care about this. We need to go across the aisle. We need to learn to listen to each other. We need to learn to listen deeply and fully. We need to learn how to work together again. And part of realizing one's true nature, it's not about realizing your true nature just so you can rest in your own, cloud of bliss and contemplate your navel all day. Whatever that's about, but rather to we wake up so that we can serve. That's the point of spiritual awakening. So we can be conduits of something higher, something greater. This great yogic master, Mooji, she's fully enlightened. And what's her job? It's to serve you and me, to serve all beings. There's so many people on the spiritual path, they view the path as in a very selfish way. What's in it for me? And they normally are thinking that because they are in suffering. And so when we are in suffering, we become very arrogant, very egotistical. That's just where we're at. But the further we walk, and after we have healed our pain, we realize we don't just stop there. Now it's time to serve others. And sometimes, again, that just means offering a smile. And so, yes, I see Tony stepped in the room. Tony, I'll smile at you in Costa Rica, my friend. Smile at you in Costa Rica. And I'm smiling at all of you. You're in California or Ireland, or, Colorado or Florida, wherever you're at, Pennsylvania, Russia. I smile at you. Can we be a conduit of grace? Can we be a conduit of love? Can we smile and listen and share? And share. Share our highest truth, our highest love. Can we share this with the world? This is what the world needs. This is what the world needs. Okay, so if anyone has a question, you're welcome to type one in the chat or the comments, or if you're on Zoom, you can ask for the microphone. For those of you who email questions in, don't email me during the webcast, because I don't check my email during the webcast, but a couple people were doing that. But anyways, let's start with the first question. This is from Danny. Danny in Alaska. Hello, Danny. Danny writes, through dealing with a dispute with a contractor this week, I realized how stressful it is for me to be assertive in the face of confrontation. I used to avoid it. Now I try to be present with right speech and right action. But I can feel the huge resistance and turmoil in both mind and body. I'm sure this is not uncommon. But will you talk about ways to approach this? Yeah, Danny, this is a great question. So I spent most of my life, I'm getting pretty old now, so maybe not most of my life, much of my life, at least half of my life, trying to avoid conflict. And this is very common with spiritual people. Spiritual people like, temperature to be just right. They like everything to be what I call nice, bunny rabbit soft, no loud noises, no strong perfume smells, whatever it is that spiritual people are highly sensitive to. Most spiritual people, when we come to the world and we're sensitive, we don't like things that are loud or confrontational. We don't like anything uncomfortable. But what I would like you to imagine, Danny, is Christ. The life of Christ, he didn't speak about comfort, about just making everything just right. He didn't create the world's softest pillow, as seen on TV. The truth doesn't care about comfort, how things feel. So, Danny, you're a man of truth. And if the truth is that you need to speak up with your contractor, I encourage you to speak clearly to him or her and just tell them, hey, what's the situation? I thought this was going to happen, but it seemed like that happened. What's the deal here? What's the deal? Now I can tell you, I actually used to work as a contractor for many years. I worked for my teacher, and then when he didn't have enough work for me, occasionally I'd go do little jobs, or sometimes big jobs for other people, neighbors of his and whoever it was. And the thing with contracting is oftentimes you're dealing with great mysteries. If you're having to work with something that's buried behind a wall. And so a contractor might give you a price and, thinking it might go, might go this way, but when he or she opens up the wall, they might discover a mystery back there. Oh, this was done all wrong. Now I have to redo the whole thing, and this wasn't done according to code, but now I have to do it according to code, and so the price is going to be more. A lot of people get in disagreements with contractors. I used to get a lot of work because other contractors weren't such good communicators. But the truth doesn't care. How you feel, how the contractor feels, what the truth cares about is what is the truth. And so I encourage you to speak the truth clearly, not with a big agenda, not with any fight, not with any even the sense of confrontation, but just to sit someone down and say, hey, can we speak about this? And oftentimes what you'll notice in your energetic body is you'll notice some fire, or there'll be a clench in the throat chakra. What the throat chakra is doing is it's trying to micromanage feeling, so you don't just burst out the wrong thing. Because oftentimes when people have confrontation, they normally want to run or they'll start yelling. And so the throat chakra tries to, mitigate all that struggle. What I would rather you do, Denny, is just to come deep into your belly, into the Hara chakra. And in a very rational way, just speak what's true. This is what's happening. I thought it was going to be this much. Now I see it's that much. What happened? What happened? A willingness to speak, a willingness to listen, a willingness to understand that life doesn't always work out how it's supposed to. It's normally the contractor or the mechanic. The same thing happens with a mechanic, plumber, whatever it is. The mechanic might go in to fix, your timing belt, and then realize, when he has the engine opened up, you also need a water pump. It's easy for our mind to go into a thought of, oh, he's trying to rip me off. And maybe that's true. But it also may be true that, hey, the job turned out to be bigger than how we originally planned. And so when you're rooted in peace, so if you feel into the Hara is, it's often experienced as this mountain of peace. It's like strength and peace. And it can acknowledge, oh, the job's going to cost a little bit more. Can I negotiate a better price? Can I speak from a place of peace and truth? Can I breathe deeply into my own emotions? Normally people are angry at contractors because of money, or mechanics because of money. And when money gets in the way, oftentimes we don't see the truth. We stop seeing the truth once there's a price tag there. Everyone has a different relationship with money. I once worked for a lady, and she loved when I charged her. She just loved it. The more I charged her, the more happy she was. The more other people, she had a plumber who charged her. It's like $150 an hour, and she just loved paying him. She used it to brag. Most everyone else didn't like to be charged a lot. They wanted to nickel and dime and get the best deal. And, they always thought you were trying to rip them off if it cost more. And it's like, hey, like I'm a human being, things come up. Like what's actually happening? Can we talk about it from a place of peace and clarity? And so in order to get comfortable with confrontation, you have to get comfortable with overwhelming feelings. And oftentimes they're just overwhelming feelings in your body. And if you start to look, if you look in a deep and psychological way, what you find is that oftentimes with confrontation, we learn about confrontation from our childhood. So like me, my father, very confrontational guy. He, often raised his voice. He would yell. He'd use profanity. I mean, he could use the F word 5 or 6 times in one sentence, So people were just terrified of my father. So as a kid, I looked at all authority, all confrontation as, experience of being a little boy in the house of my father. I was just terrified. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And so when I grew up and, when I was doing contracting work, whenever confrontation came forward, I just gave, I just gave the other person a deal. And I said, I'll just fix it for free. Don't worry about the price. I'll just do it. I went above and beyond. And it just made me broke all the time because, between that and working for my teacher didn't have a lot of money, so he couldn't pay me a lot. I was broke for most of my adult adult life. But at some point I had to learn to speak up and say, hey, I need a little bit more money, or this is going to cost a little bit more, and it's not my fault. Can we work something out? And I can remember the first time, I started to ask for more, like a fair living wage. I felt this nervousness inside, this shakiness, like this quivering in my chest. So I'd take a deep breath. My voice would be a little shaky, and I would just let it roar. Just say, hey, I'm going to need a little bit more money. And so, eventually you develop, true confidence. But oftentimes we have to walk through that doorway of shakiness. When I was out, in the desert this weekend, and when I was out there somewhere in Indian Creek, Utah or Moab area, Canyonlands, Needles area, I saw this bumper sticker, and it said, "Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Even if your voice trembles." And so in order to get comfortable with confrontation, oftentimes we have to do this. And sometimes we have to get a little carried away with it at first, like an activist, angry, yelling in the street. And if we give ourselves permission just to go a little overboard, what we'll find is we'll self-correct back. But most spiritual people are too busy being quiet and speaking and, like little mice, and not getting anywhere. So anyways, thank you, Danny. So the big thing is to get comfortable with big feelings. And this is truly a spiritual question, because if you want to be free in an embodied way, you have to be comfortable with big feelings. You have to be comfortable with emotions. You have to be comfortable with anger, sadness, fear, oppression, whatever it is. You have to get comfortable with it and then learn to say, hey, that's not right. What you did is not right. I'm going to set a boundary, or whatever it is, whatever the truth is. Get comfortable with asserting yourself. Any true master, they just speak their truth. Amma, she doesn't ask permission to speak. She just speaks her truth. She speaks it. She doesn't say, excuse me. She says, hey, 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 hey. And then she speaks her truth. I've seen her do it before. And it's funny. And she's maybe 5 foot tall and probably the most powerful woman on planet Earth. And she's comfortable speaking her truth to whoever it is, whether it's a president of any country. She's met with all, many great world leaders and religious leaders from every tradition, the Dalai Lama, whoever it is, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and she just speaks to them directly because she's comfortable with who and what she is. The further you walk on this path, and the more deeply you fall in love with yourself, what you'll find is your heart will start to open. And you'll discover this incredible reservoir of power, of truth. My wife tells me all the time that I talk too much to people I don't know, just like they're my best friend. And it's because I don't see a division between me and them. I see no walls. And so when you have a wall between you and confrontation, you actually have a wall between you and yourself and you and the world. And so part of being free, part of being awake is having no walls. No walls, being unmoved, by silliness, by nonsense. And so anyways, I hope that was helpful, Denny. Okay, let's see what else is here. Okay, Neil's writing, Christ embraces his cross like a madman. This is true. It seems like saying, forgive them. When he says forgive them, it seems absolutely crazy, but when you're so rooted in your divinity, in a sense, it's like being mad. It's completely different than the egoic collective consciousness. So true. So true. Let's see what else Neil says here. There's something in religion that doesn't communicate clearly. Jesus feeling the feelings of abuse, feeling the hurt, allowing it. As I feel the hurt from my human experience, I feel monstrous. It's dark stuff, and I sit with it. It's like God wants me to feel monstrous as I establish my sense of boundaries. That's really true, Neil, because one of the things that happens is when we've been hurt by life, we can do one of two things. We can kind of implode and, blame ourselves or whatever it is. I think that it's our fault. Or we can just quietly blame others without like raising a voice, just like inwardly attacking them. But as you sit with it and feel the rawness of the feeling, oftentimes you'll feel like a monster. You have the energy of Kali like raging through you. It'll be fiery. It'll be intense. If you really harness that power, it turns into pure divinity, pure love, pure strength, pure compassion. And so, we don't stop at being monstrous, of course. I'm going to invite you just to allow that energy to explode in you, the anger, the sadness, the hurt, whatever it is, feel it fully. And if you start to directly experience the energy that's behind the emotion, you'll find pure power, pure strength. And this is, true to, like I was speaking about before with Denny's question about getting comfortable with confrontation. You have to be comfortable with your power, which means you have to be comfortable first with your anger, sadness, hurt, whatever it is. So anyways, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Okay, let's see here. I think some other questions have popped up. All right. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so someone's asking about a question about lineage, the importance of lineage. So not only on this path are you getting in touch with your personal power, as you feel into your hara, as you feel into your truth, as you get in contact with your lineage, what you start to get in contact with is, say, hundreds, if not thousands of generations of masters behind you who came before you, who did this groundbreaking work, who made the trail, who made the path, who made the road before you. And so I've found it incredibly helpful to be a part of a lineage. If I look at my lineage, behind me is my teacher, David. Behind him was his teacher, Hilda. Behind Hilda, she has incredible teachers. She was in India, and so she was with Nityananda, Nityanandaji Satguru Maharaj, great master. She studied with so many great masters throughout India, and of course it goes back further and further. And even, as I feel into Hilda was one of these great beings who, she would have like 5 or 6 masters always standing behind her, in their etheric bodies. Oftentimes she'd have, psychics in the audience who'd come up and they'd all say who they saw standing behind Hilda. Oftentimes it would be Christ, or Nityananda would be standing behind her, and, Ramakrishna, or Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, whoever it is, Aurobindo. And being a part of a great lineage is you can call upon those masters, you can call upon the strength of that lineage, you can feel into it, feel the power of it. And you'll know when you've met your lineage, because it'll feel like home to you, it'll feel alive, it'll feel vibrant, it'll feel free. So powerful. And so often in, modern day spirituality, where people just kind of jump from one teacher to the next, lineage is often downplayed. But even right now, I feel my teacher speaking through me, acting through me, living through me. When I'm acting like a fool, then I can feel just my Craigness acting through me. But when I first started teaching, I just kept invoking, David and Hilda, and they would just speak through me. And then eventually it just became, I just felt there was no difference. And I say that from a place of humility. I've received such support, from my teachers. Yeah, so that was good. That's a good question there about lineage. I could go on and on about that. Okay, let's see here. There's another question. I'm realizing I'm running out of time here. Okay, so Amy is asking, so she says she went to church and she had a relationship with God, direct relationship with God, and she's prayed and felt connected and led by God, but I still do struggle with anxiety and depression. I'm hearing that if when you connect to God, you don't get sad or anxious. I don't understand. Can you help me with this? Yeah, so Amy, there's a good chance you need some individual support. You need some individual support. So there's some place within you that's having trouble letting go. And this is another great reason to be connected with a lineage, a teacher, a support system, someone who knows how to work with anxiety and depression. And so when you have a teacher who you work with intimately, if they're trained in how to work with emotions, some teachers are not. Some teachers are. I went and studied psychology and counseling so I could learn how to work with my own sadness, anger, guilt, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. And so it's important, to get some individual support with this. So sometimes if I have a little bit of anxiety, I might just call upon God, and immediately I'll feel held and loved by God. So we want to have that type of direct experience. But if we are holding on to our anxiety, whether consciously or unconsciously, or depression, it's because there's somewhere in our psychology that doesn't feel safe enough to let go. And so it's that place that needs to be touched by God. It's that place that needs to be touched by your heart and held and loved. It's that place, that needs some individual attention. And so I'm going to encourage you, Amy, just to get some support. And don't take that personally. We all need support. I've had tremendous support, To me, getting support with anxiety and depression is just like changing the oil in your car. It's a necessary thing. If we drive a car without doing the maintenance, eventually it'll break down. And so it's good to have some human support and divine support. It's nice when your teacher, therapist, support team, they are connected. They're where they can see your divinity and hold your humanity. I like it when the individual does both. Sometimes we can just meet with a good psychologist and they can just help us with it. But, because I'm a spiritual guy, my teacher always trained me. He said, Craig, first and foremost, you see that the individual you're working with is not broken, but they are actually whole. They are complete. They are God. You, Amy, are God. And you have a human body that has some anxiety and depression. This is normal. But it's good to get some support with this. So thank you for being vulnerable enough to ask. Okay, here's one. Let me just read this. Okay, so this is from Lisa. Lisa's writing, I know about an old friend's sister with schizophrenia, and she's totally abandoned. Her family doesn't want to help. She has no food, no electricity, and she's in a bad situation. I've been praying to the Divine Mother, Divine Father, to help her. But it's really affected me to my bones, not being able to do something. I do believe in the immense power of prayer. But what do you suggest? This country does not, yeah. So she lives in a country where it doesn't have good services like the US or Europe. Yeah. In this world, there's tremendous suffering. And so we pray for our friends and family and those who we know and don't know, and see them being held. If you can be of service, I encourage you to do so. To reach out, to be a support, to help them in any way you can. Mental illness is such an incredible struggle. But what I encourage you to see, Lisa, is that this person is God. And they don't have schizophrenia. Their mind has schizophrenia, but they are God. If you can get them in contact with any resources, please do so. Help anyone you can. But beyond this, we release them to God, give them back to God, give them back to life. And see God holding them. And trust that they have a soul. And they are greater than their schizophrenia. They're greater than their affliction. And sometimes, when I see someone like this, I'll just burst out in tears. Because it is true. There's so many people who need love, who need support, and there's not much we can do to help them. Not much. And so my heart goes out to them. I encourage you to not give up on prayer and to dig deep and see if there is a way you can serve. Okay, so is Kate here? And Kate, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hey, Craig.
Hi, it's good to see you.
You too. It's hard to say what my question is now because it's different having been with you all. But this process of and being in your presence, but this process of the kundalini, as you know, we've worked together. I really can see who I'm becoming under it, and sort of when you talk about backbone and I feel the groundedness and the sort of ego structures fall away. But there's still this tremendous, like, these bouts of just utter terror. Like, I cannot even describe it. I know you know, and probably other people on the call know. And it feels like in those moments, like, there's nothing to hold on to. Like, I can't find, like, the thing that prior to this I could like anchor to. Because it's like my senses are warbly, and it's like I'm looking at things through like a funhouse mirror. And so just this massive sense of like dysregulation that will happen and then it will like poof, go away. It's so bizarre. So I guess my question really is like, I feel like I know what to do in those moments is like surrender more fully to it, but I feel like I'm gonna like totally lose myself if I do. And like, it's just, I don't know, anything you can share would be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so terror is such an interesting feeling to work with, because, you know, when we're experiencing it, like everywhere in our body is screaming at us saying we are being overwhelmed, this is too much. Like you described, there's dysregulation and you know, it just feels so overwhelming. But I'm going to invite you to notice that there's something here within you, you know, that's not crazy. There's something here that's not overwhelmed. By not crazy, I mean, like, especially when we're feeling terror, it's like, I can't handle this, it's too much. You know, for me, sometimes I just literally feel like I was going crazy. But then I would just stop and notice there's something here that's not overwhelmed. You know, what is that? If we want the terror to end, we have to find this place within us which is absolutely sane, absolutely silent, despite, you know, the body shaking, despite the body trembling, despite all the crazy thoughts, despite, you know, the feeling of overwhelm. You know, we have to come back to this quiet Zen-like sanity and just rest there. And sometimes that means we just breathe while the body is shaking, trembling, and we're just burning in the fire of terror. You know, for me, like I can remember I sat in terror for a good part of a year and a half. And it was just constant, just like screaming, fiery. You know, anytime I just listened deeply, it was almost like hearing the voice of like 10 million kids like screaming.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I was like, geez, that's 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 intense. But then I would take, you know, another step back and just notice the screams are arising out of silence. The screams are arising out of peace. The terror is arising out of silence. You know, the same way that, you know, if you ever go to a big arena, you know, before, say, the musicians get on stage, and let's make it fun here. Let's say it's Metallica, you know, something crazy.
Right.
And the arena is completely silent. And then the guys come on and they, you know, they play guitar and they play really loud. And but the silence is there. No one's really noticing the silence. But the music, it's never big enough to fill the entirety of the silence. It may feel that way. But the silence is this space of awareness. It's this space of sanity. And it's also a space of innocence. And if you notice, you know, if you feel into your heart right now, you know, I can feel this about you. There's an innocence here that was never harmed. Never harmed by any of it. And so we're getting in touch with this. We're falling in love with this. And the more you place your attention on this quiet place of innocence, you'll start to discover that innocence is one of the most powerful forces, presences in the universe. It's much greater than terror. And so again and again, you just notice there's a sanity here, there's an innocence, And oh yeah, there's terror. And if you have the inner child, thing going on where the childlike sense of self is screaming, we want to allow that innocence to hold that child and comfort her, soothe her, help her to relax. And so any kind of touch, any type of affection, any type of embrace, deep full breaths into the heart and the belly, sometimes having a mantra, and we spoke about this before, that I love you and it's okay. I love you and it's okay. And sometimes, what I found is, despite like all like the little tricks I did, mindfulness tricks and this and that, the biggest thing I found with terror is just outliving it and then realizing, oh, it did not kill me. It did not kill me.
It's like every time I'm in it, I forget that it passes.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. The ego has this idea that, what I'm experiencing now will go on forever.
Yes.
But the truth is, everything comes and goes. Yeah. Except for the experience of you. What you are doesn't come and go, but emotions, feelings, terror, sadness, guilt, rage, all of it comes and goes. So anyways, okay, it's good to see you, and
I'll make a session with you for next week.
Yeah, get a hold of me sometime. It'd be good to check in sometime soon.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. And let's see, I think there was one more question from Richard, but Richard, I think I might be out of time. Maybe you and I we'll just talk again. We'll try again next week. Is that okay? I don't want to keep everyone.
No worries, brother. It was all good.
Okay, no problem. Okay, good. Well, it's good to see you all, and I'm sorry to keep you a couple minutes over the allotted 1 hour mark, but it's nice to be with you all. And if you want to support the Sangha, please visit craigholly.com. You can make a donation there. If you want to join us on retreat coming up in July, please do so. We'd love to have you. And may peace be with you all, and may you all have a wonderful night. Good night.